Hello, everybody. Welcome to GC 365. We are on day 331. And I'm very delighted to have my friend Kari Windsor here with me today. Kari and I met, I think, springtime. We first did a Bible study, a book study together. And we just started another one again last night. And so, Kari, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. You guys probably recognize Kari from around church because...
We've been here about 17 years. We started, we started at MOPS, and I've been in small groups. I've led small groups. I've been a mentor mom in MOPS, and now we usher once a month.
Yep.
And I work part-time at the food bank with the backpack program.
Yeah.
Coordinating that.
Thank you. Because like I said, we've done a couple book studies together. So now we're doing our sort of Bible book study today. And we're on, again, day 331. We're into Daniel. I wanted to point out my Daniel shirt, which is Daniel 3:25 from yesterday's reading. So anyhow, on that note, we're starting with Daniel 4 and King Nebuchadnezzar. And we're not going to say his name too often because we're going to stumble on it. At least I am. So part of what I read about this chapter is that really kind of the overall theme is it points to one thing, that all things will be redeemed through Jesus Christ, and how earthly powers and reigns will always lead to destruction, but God's reign is enduring and perfect. So that kind of is sort of the overall theme for this. But what I loved when I came across this day and started looking into it is it talks about a dream. I love to do dream studies. When I have a vivid dream, I'll write it down. We like to talk here at church sometimes about, sharing a dream or how vivid it was or what was the weirdness of it. So I liked reading about this interesting dream.
Yeah. And I do not keep any sort of notes on my dreams. I feel like they're very weird and don't really take note of them.
Yeah. And it's funny, though, how some stick with you and some you just kind of forget upon awakening. But this was quite a doozy of a dream as far as in its being vivid in nature. The tree that grew very tall and strong, reaching high into heaven, fresh green leaves loaded with fruit, wild animals lived in its shade. And then kind of goes on to say, the tree was cut down, lopped off the branches, shook off the leaves, scattered its fruit, chased the wild animals. So quite a turn from what the dream sort of was. But the interesting part that kind of stood out for us was verse 15, leave the stump and the roots in the ground. Yeah. And so we had some conversations about that part, about the stump. And so you had something to share about that.
Yeah, I did. I think everybody has a time in their life when they have a tree that's blooming and then it just gets whacked off. For us, it was the birth of our daughter who was born with special needs. And there's kind of a story that goes along in the special needs community. It's called Welcome to Holland. And it's just all about you're planning a trip and you are planning a trip to Italy. And you're going to learn the language and you're going to get to see the Colosseum and you're going to get to just immerse yourself in that culture. And then your plane lands and the stewardess says, welcome to Holland. And you say, I wasn't going to Holland. I was going to Italy. And there's new language to learn and there's new sights to see and a new path to navigate. And I don't think that definitely in the world of special needs kids, that's true. But I think for everybody, you have to let your tree grow. Like you have your roots, you have your faith, but now all of a sudden you have new branches and new leaves, and Holland's amazing. There's nothing wrong with Holland. It's beautiful, but it's just not what you were expecting.
Right. Not where you kind of think that you were going.
Right.
So it's that piece of the dream is interesting. The fact, something that I read about it, the fact that the stump and the roots remain suggested that the tree would revive later and eventually be new growth. And kind of when you think about like those dream symbols, like, the tree wasn't burned down, it wasn't, it was not just totally eliminated. It wasn't. So you just think about sort of those dream symbols and kind of what that can be in life too.
Right. So, and here it was more about his kingdom. And again, it's different for everybody. I'm not a ruler of any country. But it's still pertinent.
And interesting how it took, we're going to call him King N. It took him a while because he just was pretty pleased he says, by my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city. And then back up in verse 26, though, something interesting that I read about this. So it says, when Daniel's telling him about that, this means you will receive your kingdom back again when you have learned that heaven rules. And something that I saw in regards to that verse is heaven rules was the first time in the Old Testament that use of heaven was inserted for God. So I thought that was interesting, kind of a different way of still saying, you're forgetting who's in charge,
right?
Type thing. And then the other thing, which we talked about kind of then down in verse 31, while these words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. And how immediately, when he's kind of taken the credit or trying to sort of have the authority,
right?
Boom. Yeah. So, yeah. And I think sometimes it's one of those things also, when you go through life and when words come out and you're like, oops, can't take that back. Or you just wish you hadn't said that. So that is kind of like God acted on that. So did you have any other final thoughts on Daniel?
I had the verse 37 that he is able to humble the proud. And that kind of goes back to Proverbs where it's pride comes before the fall. So you just have to remember that, you have to stay humble and you're not the one in control. Yeah.
And this remembering it's God's authority, God's reign and kingdom. So I enjoyed reading this. I thought it was a kind of a fun reading, and again with the Dream Association, I loved that.
Right.
For our New Testament, we have 2 Peter 1 verses 1 to 21, and a commentary that I saw on this was that it's basically the final appeal from Peter. He knows that his death is imminent, but he's there to remind people of truths. And kind of the overarching theme is all that needs to be known in this life is known through Jesus Christ. So this letter is built on that. Yeah. And you had some other
just from verse 3 that God's given us everything we need. We don't have to do it on our own. So it's kind of, work smarter, not harder, and call on him. And the first thing that came to my mind was the easy button from
the Staples easy button.
Staples, yes. Yeah. And we can push the easy button. Like we have that in us. So we don't have to do everything on our own. And it's there. Yeah. We can just call on him.
Yep. And that he was reminding people of those things.
Yes.
I love also in verse 5 where it says supplement your faith, kind of add to it. So it's like we have the foundation, and then another way that we can grow in that, like it even says, the more you grow like this, the more productive and useful you will be in your knowledge. Adding things, moral excellence with knowledge with self-control with patient endurance. So just when we add those things to our faith, we can then even grow in our faith. And so I think that was kind of a cool part of this chapter.
Yeah.
And then also we liked in verse 19, the lamp shining, their words are like a lamp shining in a dark place until the day dawns and Christ the morning star shines in your hearts. And another word for shine used here is rising. But just that whole, God's word is often referred to or compared to a light. And I just love that. When you go through struggles or hard times, to even giving voice to things, it's like you feel like it's not just out in the open, it's out in the light. Right. And I love that.
And it gives visual, it gives you something to look towards. Yeah. If you've got light on your path, you're looking towards that. You've got somewhere to go. You've got a direction.
And that actually leads right into our psalm with the lamp and the light. Yes, in verse 105, your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. And so it's funny. I remember when my son was in went to fifth grade camp, they played like I went for a hike at night.
Oh, yeah.
And, had a flashlight. And it was just like so fun to be out there with kids in the dark, kind of woods, but all they needed was that flashlight. Yeah. And I think that's the same for us. If we can use that word as a lamp and a light for our path. Yeah. That is... It does what it does. It illuminates everything kind of and puts things in a new perspective.
For sure.
So, and then as far as how this psalm started, in verse 97, I love your instructions. I think about them all day long. Another translation says, meditate on them all day long. And so we were talking about that.
Yeah, it's just a life verse. It's like a lifeline that if you're keeping your mind on things that are pure and holy and all, from other scriptures, it gives you somewhere to anchor yourself to.
Yeah. And I like the all day long thing. You know, that's because sometimes we get sidetracked, we get preoccupied,
we always get sidetracked.
Whatever, but it's like if we can just kind of get going back to some verse, even if it's like something that's touched us in the 1 year Bible reading, that can help to just bring peace or bring freshness to your day if you're kind of trying to meditate on that all day long.
Yes.
Yeah. So anything else for the psalm that you had?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we're wrapped up with the Proverbs 28, 17, 18. I was like, whoa, this is pretty heavy. A murderer's tormented conscience will drive him into the grave. And when I saw that one and I looked it up though, an interesting note that I found about that was that's similar to Judas Iscariot and how when he betrayed Jesus, he turned him into the authorities, then he returned the money and took his own life, and how the magnitude of what he did and the guilt and that heavy conscience, he couldn't live with it. So I was like, oh, that was kind of just an interesting biblical thing to look at in that context, because that's...
Yeah. And I just went to the second verse that was the one that lives with integrity will be helped. No one who distorts night and wrong will suddenly fall. And it's just you live with integrity. Yeah. That's kind of the bottom line. Yeah. It's those wisdoms of Proverbs.
Yeah. Yep. So as we wrap up for the day, I think it's just kind of thinking about what it is within this word today that we can be meditating on, whether it's the light or a dream that we might have had that might be kind of touching our soul or sticking it with us today. But those words and just ways that we can be living through meditating on his word.
Yeah, so, 100%.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for day 331. And just again, as you go into your day, may you meditate on God's word and what you read here in the GC 365. Kari, thank you. Loved having you here.
Thank you.
Loved talking with you in Bible study and now here today. So thank you for being a part of it. Enjoy your day.
Bye.